Right. Once I got to Gainesville, I started driving around. I saw the vision, and she's, and I was like, well, yeah, it's a small town once you're in a short period of time.
Yeah. Like you can just whatever.
I do get through it, but I'll also be excited to have a city town that is fairly. No. Yeah, and I'll be okay.
Rhino.
That's awesome. And then I'll
That may come up.
yeah, fair enough.
No, it doesn't, it's just like put it back on you.
Do you have a?
It does have a laser pointer, but it doesn't really work well on the screen. So, I mean, we have multiple screens this way.
Okay. So, okay, thank you. It's awesome. Oh. Yeah.
I didn't think they were after.
Yeah, and so then I'll read the answer you gave me, then I'll hand it over. And we have up till 4. If you go till 3:50, whatever time you stop, ask me questions as the present is separate as where the attack. Try to get like maybe give you like a 10 and 3:50, and then that sound good. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not a presentation. I made that little statement, but do. Sorry, that was.
No, you're good. Because I remember when I.
Are you set?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool, ready. Cool. All right, hi everyone. Glad to see you. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today. This is Dr. Yulin Zhang. Her and I met each other through a development program that was held through the University of Florida called NERLI, Natural Resources Leadership Institute. It's directed by John Dane over in Tropical Conservation and Development and Latin American Studies. Something to keep on your guys' radar, as it's a wonderful program. Dr. Yulin is the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent at the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences Extension Central District. Her extension areas of specialization focus on integrated water resources management with an emphasis on agricultural best management practices, utilizing technologies such as small unmanned aircraft systems and soil moisture sensors to conserve water in agricultural and urban environments, on-site wastewater treatment and disposal systems, and private well water system. She received her PhD in civil engineering from the University of South Florida. She's a lead accredited professional with the building design and construction specialty, a Florida Water Star SM certifier, and a small unmanned aircraft systems pilot. Thank you, Yulin.
Thank you, Vincent. I think my bio probably is a little bit too long. Sorry about that. So I think you're taking notes. So one quiz for today is my job title. See if you can do it right, okay? That's a final exam question. All right, just like Vincent said, my name is Yiling. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent with UFIFS Extension. And today's talk, I will just give you an introduction about the Florida Well Owner Network. Before we dive into the Florida Well Owner Network, just want to ask you how many of you here have heard of Extension? Oh, see, good. So let's do the reverse. I didn't see the hand who haven't heard of Extension. Only a handful of people. So that's good. I do have a slide of that, but I will just briefly make it quick. And it was working. Okay. There it is. That's all right. If you haven't heard of the extension, so just like Vincent said, very like the long title, I'm with UFIFS Extension. So what IFAS stands for is the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. So short it's a UFIFS Extension. So what is really extension? I usually say it's extension. It's a extension of University of Florida. So like what you are doing here, it's a formal education, but not everyone has access to formal education, but everyone should have access to science-based, research-based knowledge. So that's what extension does. It's partnership between the state, federal, and county government and provide the science-based, research-based knowledge to the public. So what we do, usually it's informal education. Usually it's not like credit-based, it's a subject-based. Could be just one workshop, or could be a series of workshops, or could be few days or one-on-one consultations. So here's the map of UFIFS facilities. Basically, we have at least one extension office in each county. So at least 6-7 local extension offices. And I'm the regional specialized agent for Central Florida. So it's the orange area here. We call it Central Florida. It's a really odd shape. It's Central Florida to North Central Florida, about 11 counties in my district. So for this presentation, I will just briefly talk about the private well situation in Florida and just like why we developed this program, the Florida Well Owner Network. And briefly talk about the statewide emergency well water testing after Hurricane Irma, and introduce you a pilot study we did in Central Florida and how we continue doing Florida Well Owner Network during the pandemic and what challenges, opportunities present. So first, it's the private well situation in Florida. Just really quick show of hand. How many of you, I know you are living on campus, So how many of you have experience with private wells? Or how many of you or your parents, your family, your friends, they receive their household water from private wells? Oh, doesn't really represent the state statistics, but that's all right. It happens, right? From the state perspective, let's see. It's on the screen. You can see here. Estimated 2.5 million Floridians they get their household water from private wells. So it's about 12% of the total population of Florida, the Florida state population. And a little bit different because most of you here, you get water from water utility. So when you get water from utilities, it's regulated by Safe Drinking Water Act. So they at least have to follow EPA's drinking water regulations plus the state regulations. But when it comes to private wells, it is not required to test it. So private well users, they are responsible for the management and the protection of their well water safety. And in state of Florida, Department of Health, they review the permit and uses the permit of private wells. But some parts they may delegate to local water management district. But overall, it's under the umbrella of the Florida Department of Health. So earlier I said it's not required for private wells, just routine water testing is not required, but DOH does have a program called the Well Surveillance Program. So for that particular program, it's not for routine water testing, it's this area, they suspect some groundwater contamination. And it's not really, it's like, it can be like agriculture contamination or industrial contamination, it's more like historical land use that contaminate the groundwater. It's really not the well owner's responsibility to clean it or remediate the groundwater. So that's what DOH partnered with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and offer this program called the Well Surveillance Program. So they will go to these suspected sites to test the water. And like I said, oftentimes these are like agriculture and industrial chemicals. Generally, it's still very limited public data exists on how many well users regularly test their water or drink from contaminated wells. And on the other side, when you have a private well, oftentimes you also have a septic system. Have you have experience with septic system? So I like seeing some heads nodding here. So for septic system, so we also call it an on-site sewer disposal and treatment system. So in other words, the water is not collected and delivered to the wastewater treatment plants. It just a tank, receive the water, and then use drain field and soil to uptake to do the treatment. So that's more like septic system in a nutshell. In state of Florida, about one in 3 households in Florida use septic systems. Estimation about 2.5 million septic systems are in use across the state of Florida. So the septic systems, especially conventional septic systems, they are identified as a major source of nitrogen loading to many impaired water bodies in Florida. So with the current situation in like the well and the septic, plus really limited data on private wells, because our question is always, how many people are drinking water from their wells, but their wells are contaminated? Oftentimes the answer is like, we really don't know. So one opportunity came, it was after Hurricane Irma. So we partner, I say we, it's a UFIFS extension, partnered with Virginia Tech, because back then a postdoc in Virginia Tech received this NSF grant. It's the Rapid Response Research Grant. The one particular research question here is, were private wells contaminated after hurricane? And what resources did well users want during recovery? So we see a partnership. You can see these are all the institutions involved. And that was in 2017. We had Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. and then it's Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria. So after Hurricane Irma, Virginia Tech made available 1,200 testing kits and shipped to Florida. We basically follow the Texas model because that was after Irma. So what we did, we used the local extension offices or local extension agents as our network. They estimate, they evaluate local situation and let us know how much kits they need. And I forgot to mention us here on the first slide. I forgot to recognize my partner for this program. It's Dr. Andrea Aberton. On the last slide, you will see her name again. So here I say us, it's because this project was led by Dr. Aberton. So she was the main contact between Virginia Tech and the UF IFAS extension. So that's the blog. You can see how we did advertisements. That's just one approach. Like I said, the primary, we utilize local agents. So local extension agents, they distribute the information because through their press release, because through the county government, through Facebook, local newspaper, and also through what's the word? I lost the word for that. It's a local, I say local newspaper, it's more like mass media. And another type of newspaper is they subscribe to different associations, could be like the horse show, could be cattle farms, that type of newsletters. So we just use different outlets to deliver the information out. So what we did was we distribute the kits to each county. County agent distribute the kit to well users. And then we set a designated day. Well users drop off the kit at extension, and then we overnight ship all the kits back to Virginia to do the analysis. So we got actually 1,200 water samples. We distributed close to 1,000 water samples, but not everyone returned the sample back due to various reasons. We eventually collected 179 water samples and sent back to Virginia to analyze the microbial contamination and 12 inorganic analytes here. So here I want to show you some results. That's the first attempt just to understand what's the baseline of a private well water quality. So that's after Hurricane Irma. It shows the total coliform bacteria is about 38%, and 2% of samples detected E. coli. So we compare our data to Texas. The reason we compare to Texas A&M because they have had these baseline data for several years. They've been doing well water testing through local extension office. And after Hurricane Harvey, and their coliform bacteria is also around 40%. So and even for Louisiana, pretty similar. And what we find really useful here is the survey just ask their perceptions and their attitudes towards well education and well testing. So here you can see 77% of them indicated they are interested in testing service. And really interesting to find here is how coupled they are when it comes to well maintenance, private well management. So if you, the yellow means that they strongly disagree with the statement. It's more like yellow, orangish. And the blue is they agree, and the gray is neutral. So if you look at this category here, it's I know where I can find the information about my private wells. Almost half of them disagree with this statement. So they are just not sure where they can find more information. And about 1/3 of them not sure where they can get their water tested. And about 20% of them, they do not feel comfortable about managing their private wells. Because of that, that initial statewide needs assessment, plus the current situation of private wells and the septic system in Florida, Dr. Aberton and I developed this program called the Florida Well Owner Network. It is an extension program. Excuse me. And this program, the goal, we have threefold. A is to educate residents about well water quality and quantity, and the best practices to ensure well maintenance and groundwater protection. The second goal is to facilitate access to well water testing and provide information about treatment if problems are found. And then the last is we developed this program. It's not to replace DOH, Florida Department of Health or Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Our goal is really to complement their existing efforts to develop this partnership to increase the awareness among Floridians about the best practices regarding wells, septic systems, and drinking water quality. So after the statewide emergency water testing, I was able to do a pilot study in Marion County. So that's south of Alachua County. And the reason the pilot study was conducted in Marion County, A was back then I was working in Marion County. And B, you look at the map here, if you see it's purple, that means that land parcel, that's a private wells. So at least 1/3 of the residents in Marion County, they receive their water from private wells. And there really no baseline data of the well water quality. So even after Irma, I mean, our sample for Marion County was small, only 19 samples, but that's some data there. So use that to just communicate with the local DOH, let them know. We did this preliminary, like statewide emergency testing, and it showed there was close to 40% total coliform bacteria, and Marion County was around 26%. And the well users had that interest in learning more about that. So local DOH was very supportive. They funded this program for two of their fiscal years. So what I did back then in Marion County was that was the agreement. They provide a mini grant, enable me to do 20 free well water testing for bacteria every month. So for this 2 fiscal years, I did monthly seminars. The seminar was just educate them, teach them how to manage their private wells and the septic systems. So the class was about 2 hours. After the class, they received a testing kit. I showed them with instructions on how to collect well water samples. And the next week, they came to the extension office to drop off the water samples. And then I delivered these water samples to a local certified water testing lab. So here you can see from the slide, this pilot started for 2 years. It was a true collaboration with the local DOH and also with a local certified testing lab. We got a contract deal, really cut down the testing cost, and the other really to us it's really a benefit to use the certified lab. Might be a little bit into the weeds because we are doing bacteria testing. But for bacteria testing, the water holding time can no longer be. It depends on the lab, but that particular lab says 24 hours. But when you do public outreach, you ask well users to collect water, drop off the extension office. That holding time, 24 hours, cannot always be met. So with that relationship with that certified lab, they were willing to do a screening for us, not really like follow all the regulation. Like I shouldn't say not follow regulation. That sounds so terrible. It's because the certified lab to meet their compliance. So what they did is that they did that service to us, but our data were not reported. It was more like a screening type of service. And once the results, once I received the results, I deliver the result to the well users. So that's what like class attendees really like, the certified lab really like too, because the lab didn't have the capacity to communicate the results with the well users. And for well users, actually, they are really they just don't like to talk to the lab. They just feel like the lab may want to sell them something. which is quite true. A lot of certified labs, they are also water companies. So me as a university faculty and the extension agent, just like more like a middleman here. They feel like they can really trust me, and they feel like their personal information is not released to the lab, and the lab is also feel like they don't need to deal with a large quantity of customers inquiring about water testing. So let's look at some results. So in total, about 331 people attended this educational program, and they all indicated that this program was helpful. 97% very helpful, 3% somewhat helpful, and they all improved their knowledge of septic, private well, and also the groundwater, the protecting forest water. And to me, really, really interesting is also just to get a baseline data of Marion County. Because here I collected 214 samples just for Marion County, and it showed 18% of sample detected bacteria contamination. And the picture on your right hand, you can see it's how these testing kits look like. They have a 100 ml cereal bottle with all the instructions, and everything is in a 1 gallon Ziploc bag. So it's just much easier to hand them. They come to grab the kit, everything they need is inside. And also for bacteria testing, we really want to eliminate the sampling contamination. That's why for the 100 ml bottle, we also put it into a sandwich bag. Putting into the sandwich bag, it's not really, it's how much it can prevent bacteria, like contamination during collection. It's more just give them that sense. It's like, okay, you're dealing bacteria sample. So you want to keep it, like you need to wash your hands. You don't want to contaminate your samples by accidents. And also some really interesting information we find here is 64% of them, they don't know much about their wells. Because we asked the question when the well was, actually, what type of well is that? Is that a drilled well, a dug well, a bored well? They're like, I don't know. I don't even, they didn't know when the well was drilled or when the well was constructed, the depth, the parameter. So basically, it just, I would say like 2/3 of them, they didn't know much about their well. Only thing they know is, okay, I get my household water from this well on site. 65% of these well owners, they have never tested their well water. And 73% of well owners drink their tap water without any treatment. And I want to put a little bit explanation here. It's not saying private wells need water treatment systems. The concern here is they have not tested and they are drinking it. So the well may have contaminants or they may not have contaminants. So this is just more like a blind confidence there and drinking their well water without knowing what's in the water. We also ask a question about their septic systems. So here you can see it's 44% of them, they have never pumped their septic tanks. So earlier I mentioned the septic systems they are identified as a major nitrogen loading to impair water bodies in Florida. And another harm for if they don't manage their septic systems, because septic systems are designed to kill bacteria, to kill pathogens. It's for public health perspective. The lack of maintenance can also decrease the treatment, bacteria treatment from their septic systems. So after this pilot program, Andre and I were ready just to apply this model to other counties. And then it was the pandemic. So when we were ready to do that, it was actually March 2020. So with the pandemic, we were unable to do these in-person workshops. Then we pivot our program we did a webinar series. So for the first one, actually 2020, I didn't put it there. 2020, we did 4 talks, which was we did a private well, basics of private well, basics of septic systems, basics of advanced septic systems. And I believe we did the other one is a septic system and private well care before and after storms. So we did that, and based on the feedback, what topics they like, they want to know more, we redesigned the 2021 webinar series. So here you can see it's similar. We still have the basics like private well 101, septic system 101, but these webinar attendees also expressed that they were very interested in learning more about like well contaminants, of like what's really in my drinking water, such as lead in drinking water or hardness. So that's why we offer two other topics. It's what's hard water and the lead in drinking water. And the bottom one here is the common home water treatment systems. So what we did was we offered the webinar once a month, and we did 8 webinars that stretch out to 8 months. Switch from in-person to webinars can really like reach to a broader audience much quickly. So you can see it's in about 6 months, we reached 500 well users. But because of the nature of webinars, we couldn't really do well water testing. So later through the pandemic, we started to do these hybrid workshops. So the idea was we did educational components. We also offered well water testing. So we were able to do some these workshops or webinars in Hernando County, which is in the Tampa Bay region, Suwannee County, and Jackson County. Actually, Jackson County, we did it multiple county, so it's the whole Tallahassee area. Some data you can see here, it's because for Hernando County, 16 samples, it's a little bit small sample. Just want to give you an idea. We cannot really say it's like, okay, that's the baseline data of Hernando County, because we know we only collect 16 samples. And similarly for Suwannee County, we only collect 10 samples. But actually, this is the highest total coliform in one county. It's 60%. And for Suwannee County, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 80% of land parcels show the private wells. And then for Jackson County, it's 21% of for coliform bacteria, and 1% show the E. coli. And how we did these workshops during hybrid workshops, it's similar to the Marion County model. So for Hernando County, we plan to do in person, but that was the surge of COVID again. And these attendees, they didn't feel comfortable to sit in a room to do that workshop. That's why we switched to webinar. So we asked them to go to local extension office to pick up the kit. After the webinar, like the week after the webinar, they went to local extension office to drop off the sample. And similar model applied to Suwannee County. And for Jackson County, it was all in-person workshops. What they did was similar as Marion County. Attendees received the testing kit at the workshop. And also want to show you some latest, not much results, but more like progress of what we are doing as because recently we received funding from Extension Disaster Education Network through the USDA funding. So what we were able to do, we just finished the webinar series. And on top of the webinar series, like I mentioned, the previous 2 years, we did a webinar, but we could not offer well water testing. Through this grant, we were able to offer well water testing. So what we did, you can see here, it's all these testing kits. We ship the testing kit to these webinar attendees and gave them a designated date to send a sample back. So I want to show you here, it's what's in that kit. So they have that's the IRB, the consent form, that's the sampling instructions, the QR code. They can read it. they can also scan the QR code to watch the YouTube video just to see how they can collect the water sample, and also ask them to take the survey. So these are similar to the previous how we did the sampling. But want to show you here is we label each bottle. And then we don't, in this way, there won't be any confusion. We don't ask well users to label that. And that's the 1 gallon Ziploc bag. You put the bottle into it, everything into this big Ziploc bag. And because it's the mail-in option, we also put 2 Ziploc bags, ask them to put ice into it. So our whole goal here is we provide you everything. You don't need to go get anything or pay for anything extra and get your water tested. And we did a webinar series. We're also able to post it on YouTube, caption them, make them available for people who were not able to come to the webinar. And these are the samples in the incubator. And this just show you how these kids, how we receive them. So like I said, this is the screening still in progress. So I think so far I received 54 samples, and actually there are more samples just in the incubator now as I'm talking. So when I get back, so I will know how many more water samples show bacteria. So at this point, it's 18% of samples show the total colloquium bacteria. You can see it's still quite consistent. I mean, it's similar to other counties. We also compare to Texas. Theirs is similar, like 20% is a baseline and 40% after storms. And because of this grant, we were also able to do training to county extension agents, because we really need just a local extension office as our partners, because they know their county very well. They know how to market this program, and we can get these attendees to our workshop. And also train them how to do bacteria testing. So we just finished in-service training for extension agents in Central Florida. And we are planning some in-person workshops following the similar model, just I mentioned, just like the Marion model. Hernando County will be the end of this month. Jackson County actually is tonight, and the 2 counties are planning. So to wrap up, still want to share some challenges for Florida Well Owner Network, because we recently received the grant which enable us to test the bacteria in-house. So we no longer need to rely on a certified lab to do that. Because for certified lab, even they gave us grace period, doesn't really need to follow 24 hours, but still they are not like even samples. It's because how to say that correctly. So let's say if we have a workshop in Tallahassee, but I'm in Apopka. So how we can get a sample from Tallahassee to the Apopka lab, because my relationship is with this particular lab in the Orlando area. So this even overnight shipping can really increase the holding time. So that's why we are really, actually that's the second point is here. We want to establish more relationship with the certified labs to expand our testing, not just this particular lab is able to do our well sample screening. And also looking for funding, because so far we have the ability to test the samples, test the bacteria in-house, but there's still so many analytes we cannot able to test. These well users, they are interested in knowing heavy metals in their water, but our lab is not equipped with that. And I cannot even test like a nutrient in-house. So we need funding also to expand our current testing capacity. And the last is the most critical part is the research. So for Florida now, we don't have these latest research focus on private well drinking water. So we know, for example, just like PFAS. So we know there are some studies going on about the PFAS in soil, and they are doing specific testing, but what's the PFAS concentration, like how prevalent is PFAS in our groundwater now? And how about PFAS in these private wells, and how we can treat it? We don't have like Florida specific information, even going back to heavy metals like lead, how many private wells contain, actually wells don't really, lead is usually from household plumbing, but it's like how many well users are consuming water with lead. All these questions, so we don't really know, and we don't even have a good, we don't have that much research to support that either. So our major challenge is just like here, it's a funding, testing, and research. So looking forward here, we are actively seeking more partnerships. We are seeking partnerships through local extension offices. We are seeking partnerships through the state DOH and also local DOH. And also, as I mentioned, we have a very good relationship with one certified lab, but we want to expand that we want to have more partner, like certified labs as our partners. And also, we collect some good amount of samples, but if we put into the map, it still doesn't really show the whole state of Florida. Maybe each county will only have 10 to 20 samples. So what we want to expand these hybrid and in-person workshops and sampling events, especially for residents, for residents in more counties. And we have created some educational materials and also infographics, something like here, and we have extension publications for, but there's still a lot of information we can create. There's still need and still gaps we need to fill. So looking forward, we want to create more extension materials on private wells and septic systems. And the last is we are developing a website, because with all the information, where do you house it? So if it's only hiding in my computer or Andrea's computer, no one can access that. It doesn't really serve that much good. So we are developing this website, trying to make it really user friendly, because DOH has information about even like permitting. If you go to DOH's website, some of you have computer, but you can search DOH and private well. Their website is very challenging to navigate. So hard to find information. So, because oftentimes we tell well users, it's like contact your local DOH, or like DOH has this well surveillance program, has that database, you can have a look. Oftentimes they just couldn't find it. It's just very challenging to navigate. So for us, this website, we want to make it very like user friendly and very easy to find all the information. So with that, I will be happy to take your questions. Yes.
Related to the webinars, have you thought, I know in IFAS, there's the Center for Online Learning Technology, the whole office with the Canvas to create like courses for well management. Yeah.
That's what we are thinking, and thank you for mentioning that. They actually help us capture all the webinars and also did recorded PSAs for us. So we just, we're in that stage trying to figure out how we can make this online course more interesting. Because during like Zoom webinar, we can still ask questions, keep them engaged. Just post that 30-minute video on Canvas.
To break it up,
Yeah, especially it's like, it's not credited. It's like, I cannot like, hey, you have to do that. If you don't finish all, like, I can provide 5 quizzes. You don't do it right, you don't get a testing kit. We just like, we still trying to brainstorm how we can engage these attendees through Canvas.
Yeah, sometimes you need to like a certificate of completion.
Thank you.
So I have 2 questions for you. One is for the website stuff. Are you creating your website through IFAS's website? So will it be hosted through UF or through the IFAS based website?
That's where we are creating a template now. We couldn't really decide if we want to house at IFAS or at UF, because UF is using the terminal for a certain format, so make it a little bit challenging to navigate. So if we use another third party, that's for you who know UF what I'm talking about. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, probably you're lost now. So if we rely on US platform, for us, we lost this like creativity. If we use a third party, then we lost the US and the branding. So that's a part.
And I know that a lot of like the Google searches that end up with extension answers, like there's a lot of like all those things that drive you in the right direction to a website. And so I think the sort of the power of the extension website is going to be really powerful for that. Like when someone goes on Google and they're like, Florida well bacteria,
Yeah.
like hopefully it would go straight to you in the extension site. And I feel like there's that credibility of extension materials too, that's really important.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I do, yeah, I sort of agree with what Lacey is saying about like, you know, if you have people having to take a course, like some people really want to be certified that they took a course. Some people are like, I want to take a class.
Yeah, that's we even thought about to partner with DOH to offer the continuing education for their professionals. Because we just had a conversation with so these folks, I don't want to say it wrong, but they probably they don't know as much as we thought, and the continuing education is really needed for this particular audience.
I asked my other question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna, you can go next. What is the biggest, like, when people are concerned about groundwater contamination amongst the folks here in webinars, but you mentioned lead, but do they know about all the other weird industrial stuff under Florida?
So that's my interaction with these, program attendees. I feel like sometimes it's quite polarized. So I have one group of folks, they're like extremely concerned every single thing in their water, even if they get water from city water, but they are still very concerned with the water quality, want to have like a whole house of reverse osmosis system. And I have another group of folks, it's like, I do want to know more about my well water. But since I've been drinking that for 20 years of my life, well, I'm not sick. I think it's all right, but I want to learn more. So I feel like oftentimes it's like these are too polarized. But if really like pick one thing they ask the most, like the contaminants, actually it's not contaminants, it's harness. It's calcium and magnesium in water, because that's what they can really see. They see the buildup on their faucets, and I forgot to mention actually the other is iron. It's not a necessary contaminant too, because Florida's groundwater, it's some areas are naturally high in iron. So when the water is a little bit brownish. So I think it's really, to make the long story short here, it's the question they tend to ask is what they can see. Septic tanks, could you say that again?
How far is that big from the well?
Oh, you mean that? Oh, sorry, I just didn't catch it. So according to Florida's building code, the setback is 75 feet. So from your wellhead to the septic system, it's 75 feet. But understand that it's a septic tank, which you have a tank, it's a watertight container and with drain field. So where the 75 you said is from the tank or the end of drain field. So that part doesn't really specify. So for other states, they made it's 50 feet setback from the tank and 100 feet setback from the drain field. But again, that's the minimum separation distance. You want to keep it as far as like much further than that. So that's why the typical practice you can see it. These properties, The front yard is a septic system, and the backyard is their drinking well. Yes, ma'am.
Can we go back to your picture of all of your samples in the incubator? Is this yellow a common color that you see in samples? Is that a sample?
I'm glad you asked. I didn't even say that. So who wants to take a guess? Why it's yellow? Go ahead.
Good.
No, fortunately not. That's actually public outreach, you can receive anything. So that, if it's yellow, so that's an issue. So the sample we did, and we used the substrate, which is very selective. So it will only target coliform bacteria. After incubated for 24 hours, if the well sample shows that yellow, which means it has total coliform, and then you put that yellow sample under a black light, a UV light, and if it's a fluorescent, then it has. So you can see here, it's this one sample. Actually, you look closer, there's one in the back. Yeah. I had two samples that show the total coliform.
Just a very microbiology question. Since we are talking about medias and broths, I just wanted to know what are the components you use to raise those coliforms? Since there were indicators, there's a specific dye for sure, but what was the components of that broth?
Have you heard of Color Alert? I use that company. Most certified labs also use a Color Alert substrate from iLabs.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes.
Are the residents informed of the results?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you. I forgot to mention that. Yes. So that's after the testing, what I promised them, it's really, so far I'm one person lab. So like today I'm here. So it's really not, I try to do the turnaround in 3 days. That's because receive sample incubating is 1 day, and I try to get it within 3 days, but it doesn't always happen. What I did was for these all negatives, I just emailed them because it fairly large number of them. And when it was positive, I called them and I also emailed them all the solutions. And I also walk them through like what they can do. It's actually first I always offer another test just to confirm you have bacteria before we jump into other treatments.
And thinking about water quality and testing, so once it's treated, like, are they done testing, or do they will they test again to see if it comes back, I guess? Like, how often can homeowners be testing?
So that's a good question. It's suggested once a year you test the bacteria, nitrate, and the lead. And you want to increase the testing frequency as if you have someone that's like you have infant, elderly, or nursing moms, or someone with a compromised immune system, you want to test it every 6 months.
Are you testing for lead too, or you switch it?
I did that, but my lab is not equipped doing that. I did a pilot in Marion County to a very small sample to, let me think how many, I probably only collect 50 samples to test the lead. It's a lead, it's a little bit more expensive. So I couldn't really find funding to support me to do that. For these about 50 samples tested lead, it was all well owners, they paid for that. Again, it's a reduced cost. Let me think. I test about 50, only one sample showed the lead. And again, it's from the plumbing, it's not from the source.
It takes time, and that's what we learned when we were doing lab testing back in India for one of the projects. Lead testing in general takes time, and it's definitely more expensive.
Yeah.
Reagents were so expensive for that.
And for lab testing, it's because I reach out to health department. Because for me, it's I need that funding. Let's do a little bit baseline, even just a small county. But lead is not really like a major, that's code by code. it's not a major health concern in Florida. Which was a half. You can say it's true because Florida water it's hard, so it has a lot of calcium. And if you think about the pipe, because water is hard, so you basically have a coat in the buildup inside the pipe. So even you have these metal pipes, heavy metal, it's not that easily to leach into your water. And also Florida, some, especially in household, these pipes are also PVC pipes. So it's not really a major concern, but for these lead find, oftentimes it's a big reason to have renovation, the new faucet. What I want to say here is it may not be high percentage, but once we find a lead sample, the concentration is always way higher than the EPA drinking water standard. So EPA, the drinking water standard is 15 ppb. When we find that water, it's lead contaminated, oftentimes it's in the unit of ppm. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, okay,
This is a light question.
do you ever map your results out? Like, do you see like regions of like, oh, this area has a lot of E. coli, but over here it has a lot of something else that's not E. coli?
I'm glad you asked. I'm really looking for some students to map it for me. I have about close to 300 hard copies of surveys, and I need to log into the GIS, and we can create this map. To short answer to that, yes, that's we are planning to do that. But so far, our 2-person team requires a little bit of time to make that map.
Hold back to over here, buzzing now.
Very. I was just wondering, having a private well is more like an option or a lack of accessibility to water utilities?
It's the oftentimes it's the second one. So usually they have a private well simply because the public water lines are not nearby. And for utility, it's just not cost effective to expand it to that area.
I think, Steven, should we check if there are questions online?
Yeah,
Just one question.
their question in the chat.
Okay. Would you like to read it?
Could you tell a big difference between the water quality in the wells after Irma versus during normal conditions from Joanna?
Okay, sorry, I didn't mention that. Because Irma, we collect 179 samples and we send it to Virginia Tech for microbial bacteria and inorganic matters. We didn't find for the inorganic matters really like off charts. They were all in a fairly like normal range. The only thing stuck out, it was a bacteria. So that's why for our Florida well owner network, current focus was to test the bacteria.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you want that, I can still test your well water.
And I forgot to put a plug in the beginning, but nominations for grad reps for next year close tomorrow. So if you have not nominated, if you'd like to, please access the link that's in Zainab's email from a few days ago. Thank you.
Let's do right in here.
Solid.
So the one year that
Everything, the whole time we're trying to play.
Yeah.
Did you?
It's still kind of a rough draft, but that's what we're going to do. I'll get it worked up. It's on your agenda right now. The classes.
Oh, yeah.
Most done, but
I have
You know,
that's
yeah.
perfect.
So what?
I don't have my business card. I'm the only link in the US. Yeah, email. Thank you. Are you a graduate student? You're a PhD? Yes, please.
Okay,
Send me an email.
thank you.
Thank you.
I really like them. I have you have any showing the health impact of the contaminant, like they live in the area with more contaminants? Do they have more diarrhea?
So